All right.
Here you
Now,
go. Here you go.
The Oakland, Los Angeles, back to Oakland, now in Las Vegas, Raiders. I will be going with my offense first. Quarterback, Ken Stabler, I think is the more I read about the start that he had to his career, the more incredible the end of it was. Like the fact that he was drafted in 68, he spends 2 years on like the taxi squad, injured reserve. We've talked about him being the second quarterback that they actually took in that class. I think it was Eldridge Dickey that went in the first round. But because of the politics and racial politics, all that stuff, you would have thought Al Davis, being kind of the trailblazer that he was, he would have gone with Dickey, but I guess it may be a little too early for him to feel comfortable making that decision. I know he's taken stands against, staying in like non-integrated hotels or playing in places like things like that. So
he was, I know he definitely, for the NFL, he was a trailblazer in that regard, right? I mean, he definitely brought the league forward.
Yeah. As far as Ken Stabler, great nickname, Snake, not the Snake, just Snake. To make sure, I'll make sure to get that right. 2-time All-Pro, won the MVP in 73, 70s All-Decade team. So, one of the best quarterbacks of that era. Don't look at his raw stats because unless you know the context, you'll be like, why is this guy a Hall of Famer? Right. Same thing with Joe Namath. I think especially kids these days, they'll be like, wait, he threw for more interceptions than touchdowns, but don't worry about that.
Now,
let's focus on.
Now, let me ask you, how much consideration did Daryle Lamonica get?
The thing is, I feel like Stabler is the clear number one. And then there's like the second tier of guys where you have like Lamonica, you got Plunkett because of the team success. Maybe throw Rich Gannon in there because of the MVP and reaching the Super Bowl. And then in terms of like raw stats, counting stuff, Derek Carr, he's like he'd be in that third tier. So, there was not a super strong quarterback tradition, I would say, compared to some other teams like that. I mean, I get not someone like a few other teams, maybe Dallas or San Francisco, but I would say you can throw them in the mix of a pretty elite group. And the thing is I'm completely biased, but it was so hard to do this. Every single position.
You love them all.
Is like 4 deep.
because you know them, and you know the backstories, and you know all the stuff, right?
Yeah, I do, but it's also like I feel like the fact that the Raiders have been bad for 20 plus years now, I think it does such a disservice to the rest of the eras that they had, where for decades they literally had just Hall of Famers at every level, every position, guys that would stay there for 10, 15 years and be excellent and win Super Bowls. Even in the 90s where they weren't great, they still had some of those guys. But from the 60s to 1990,
they were for 25 years. I mean, like relevant and one of the best teams in the league for 25 to 30 years before they, obviously, the last 25 had been rough. But prior to that, they were exactly. They were so good.
Yeah. All right. So my offensive line, this was tough, but I would say probably the best offensive line in the division. We'll start with the left side. Art Shell, Gene Upshaw, both played in the AFL into the NFL. Both won multiple Super Bowls with the team. These guys were so good, they were kind of almost thought of as one unit player because one unit, right? Both went to small schools that I think don't even play football anymore. So this is another, tip of the cap to Al Davis and his scouting department. And I think it gave him an advantage that he wasn't scared to draft guys from, black players HBCUs, from HBCUs or small schools, things like that. He left no stone unturned. And back then it gave him an advantage. For my my right tackle, this was a little tough. I went with Henry Lawrence. It was tough between him and Lincoln Kennedy. I think Lincoln Kennedy's probably peak was better, but Lawrence played there for 12 years, 3 Super Bowls. You're the starter. I mean, I kind of got to give him the nod. My other guard, I cheated a little bit. I know Steve Wisniewski is a left guard, but it's all the same to me. I put him at right guard, someone that I know you're passionate about, his Hall of Fame case. And then at center, the probably greatest Raider of all time, Mr. Raider himself, Jim Otto, one of the toughest SOBs to ever put on a uniform, 00, which is awesome. I don't think they allow that number anymore. But yeah, he didn't miss a single game over 15 years.
That's the best Otto stat there is right there. That he played 15 years for the team, 14 games every year, 210 games, 210 starts. Mr. Raider. I love it.
There's this clip that was circulating recently with Chris Long on his podcast where he was talking about, he just gave like this laundry list of injuries that Jim Otto played with. And, I'm sure he knew him, from when his dad was playing. He's probably hanging around the Raiders still. So I'm sure he got to hear some of these stories firsthand. But yeah, that is my Raider offense.
And I've got 4 of the 5. I've got Lincoln Kennedy at that tackle instead of the player you chose. But the other 4 are right there. Shell, Upshaw, Otto, Wisniewski. Wisniewski, 8-time All-Pro, and I got to plug him again. 8-time All-Pro, all decade for the 90s, and still not in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. And one of the things, you
imagine being an 8-time All-Pro and not even. Go ahead.
That's crazy. It's crazy. But here's the thing, and we'll get into this. Here's the thing that I love about the Raiders franchise specifically. You can make a Raiders Mount Rushmore and pick no guys who handle the ball. You can do without a single skill position, without a quarterback, without a running back, without a wide receiver, without a tight end. That might be the correct Raiders Mount Rushmore, and I just love the fact that there's so many of their great players acknowledged by the fans as great players are not the flashy players. I love it.
Yeah, I think if you go to any Raiders game, I think you'll be shocked at how many offensive line jerseys you'll see, Upshaw and Shell, and even Wisniewski growing up. And again, on Wisniewski, imagine being an 8-time All-Pro and not even getting to play your natural position.
because there's a better player in front of you.
That's just bonkers.
Yeah.
For my
I
skill
want
guys,
to see what you did here. What did you do here?
Yeah, this was hard too. But I went with one running back. I think it's clear in terms of overall talent, dominance, peak, all that stuff. It's Marcus Allen, all-time leading rusher, NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP, first player in NFL history to reach the 10,000 rushing yard and 5,000 receiving yard mark. I know that's probably becoming a little more common these days.
The 10,000, actually, the 10,000 is going to be the harder part going forward.
True. Yeah. Exactly. There you go. It might be like, it might be reversed at some point with some of these guys. And then I went with 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end. The tight end position was very hard. I couldn't, it was hard to leave him off. But I went with Dave Casper as my tight end. I very nearly went with Ted Hendricks, who was up there as well. Sorry, not Ted Hendricks. Todd Christensen. Thank you. I'm getting my names mixed up. Todd Christensen. And then I gave like a half a second consideration to the peak of Darren Waller. Just like, maybe don't need a second tight end, but at his peak,
you're a Raiders fan, all right.
Yeah, right. And then a wide receiver. This is a murderer's row. I think there's a few franchises that could match up, but very few. I went with Tim Brown, all-time team leader in receptions and yards. I think he's 5th all-time in receiving yards with almost 15,000. He's got 14,700. And then Fred Biletnikoff, who's probably underrated at this point. I know people don't like the Stickum stuff, but hey, it is what it was. It is what it is. And he's so good, they named the best wide receiver award in college football after him. And then Cliff Branch was my 3rd wide receiver. We talked about deep threats, ultimate deep threat, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 3-time All-Pro. It's a tragedy that he had to wait, or his family had to wait for him to pass, for him to get into the Hall of Fame. He should have been in there well before. But I was like, can I fit Bo Jackson in there? No. Some of these other guys I wanted to fit in there, I just couldn't. Actually, me and James on Wednesday, Tuesday, we talked about Warren Wells. As one of the all-time great AFL guys that had his career derailed. But Jerry Rice could have been.
Rice could have made some other teams with his Raiders performance. If he did that on another franchise, he might have been able to make it.
Yeah. So who are your skill
exactly
guys?
The same. Exactly the same. Right. So, Christensen was a honorable mention for me. Mark Van Eegen. People don't give guys like that enough credit. I think a lot of fans would have tried to put Bo on this team and maybe found a way to put Bo on this team. But in terms of production, he just doesn't. I think Bo was 15th all time on Raiders rushing, something like that, right? Mark Van Eegen was 2nd. Marcus Allen was the obvious first, and then you couldn't not put all 3 of those receivers on there. It had to be Tim Brown and Biletnikoff and Cliff Branch. So, all 5 are the same.
Yeah, throw in like Mervin Fernandez in there. There's so many guys. He just wanted to fit him in there, but he just couldn't do it. All right. For the defense, so I went with a 4-3 this time around. I mean, it could be a 3-4 either way. By defensive ends, I went with Howie Long. I think was the no-brainer.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went with a 3-4. My apologies.
Okay.
3-4. Howie Long as my defensive end. 81-93, 3-time All-Pro, almost 100 sacks. They didn't keep stats for tackles for loss, but I know from my research, my reading, he was great at that as well. He's kind of Max Crosby before Max Crosby. There's a couple guys like that. My nose tackle, I went with Chester McLaughlin, 3-time All-Pro in the mid-90s. So this was kind of the lull for the Raiders before the slight uptick. I almost went with Darrell Russell, but I think McLaughlin's peak was a little bit better, and then Russell had his own, suspension issues and injury issues, things like that. My other defensive end, this was tough. I almost went with Max Crosby as my right defensive end, but not quite yet. I'll give him like 2 years. He's up there. I went with Greg Townsend, who played there for 13 years, 7 double-digit sack seasons. I know a lot of them was playing opposite of Howie Long. I'm sure that helped. But he was still a 2-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champ, 9 sacks. So we talked about 100 maybe being that cutoff for the Hall of Fame. I know he hasn't reached, he hasn't been in those conversations, but maybe he should be. And then for my linebackers, the Raiders have a great linebacker tradition. So this was hard to parse through. For my outside linebackers, I went with Khalil Mack. I know he only played there for 4 years, but that peak that he had, being all pro in 2 positions in the same year, I think like that's unprecedented. He only has 40 sacks, but it's 40 sacks in 4 seasons. He's gone on to, great things in other places. And then Ted Hendricks, this is one of the best trades in Raider history, basically gave away some trash to acquire him. And he was an all-time great before he came to Oakland, which is, cool. And then for middle linebackers, this was tough, but I went with Rod Martin, may he rest in peace, passed away recently, 2-time All-Pro, 2-time Super Bowl champ. And then Dan Connors, an AFL legend, 3-time All-Pro. I almost went with Matt Millen here. I kind of was like, I don't know. Kirk Morrison was great too for a little bit, but who was your front seven? Well, you know what? We've got
you've got a lot of Raiders knowledge, so we got a lot of disagreement here. I went
great.
on the edge, of course, Howie Long. You can't not have Howie Long. First of all, I went with a 4-3. So my edges are Howie Long and Max Crosby. Max Crosby is a 2-time All-Pro already, 5-time Pro Bowler. I think his peak is pretty high as compared to a Khalil or someone else.
You know what's funny is I think as the younger guy, I was like, I can't be biased towards the younger guys. And then you got some years on me. But
then again, I'm gonna flip Otis Sistrunk in as a as a defensive tackle. So Otis Sistrunk and
from the University of Mars,
exactly. Right? And McLaughlin is my other. So McLaughlin and Sistrunk in the center or in the middle, and then Howie Long and Max Crosby off the edges. And then my linebackers, I have Hendricks, of course. You got to have Hendricks. I have Rod. Man, I was still torn. I'm like, I've got Millen on my team as well. But then I was going back and forth between Rod Martin and Phil Villapiano. And I ended up with Filipiano. So he's my but my 3 guys, with apologies to Rod Martin, Villapiano, Millen, and Hendricks, are my 3 linebackers.
It was Khalil Mack just not there.
That's for me. That was it. And the challenge with him is he might suffer in all of these teams, right? Because he like a guy like Deion Sanders, he very well, you could legit. Obviously, he's one of the best players of all time, but I'm not sure whose all-time team he makes. He makes the Falcons just because they were so bad, right? Because they don't have any depth. But I don't, but he was a short time. I mean, he only played for the Niners for 1 season. he played for the Cowboys for 5. They've got a lot of secondary. I mean, so it'll be funny. It'll be interesting to see when we get there. But I think Khalil's the same way, that he played a short time for a few, like for the Bears, for the Chargers, for the Raiders, and may struggle to make any one of those teams. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't make our Chargers team. Didn't make the Raiders team. Bears,
they
have so many
great defensive players from way back. So so he made half a team.
I think yeah, exactly. At one point, there was a real conversation between who would you rather have, Khalil Mack or Aaron Donald. I think Aaron Donald eventually won that argument, pretty convincingly. Yes. But the fact that it was even a discussion makes you think, okay, this guy was pretty damn good.
Yeah.
All right. And secondary. Then on my defensive backs.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, this was impossible.
Murderer's
impossible.
Row. Yeah, your phrase murderer's row. It was like they had 10 guys.
Yeah, like you could make three teams here of all, Hall of Fame type guys, all pro type guys. My corners, I went with Willie Brown, 6-time all pro with the Raiders, Super Bowl champ. Old man Willie, behind one of the great Super Bowl calls where he picks off Fran Tarkenton for the pick six. Original number 24 number. I know the Raiders don't retire numbers, but if they would, number 24 would be the one, not just for Willie Brown, but for the other guys that have worn it since. Incredible player. And he was also a former Denver Bronco. And he was great on the Broncos. And this is probably Al Davis's best trade because he trades a throwaway defensive lineman in the 3rd round pick for a guy that played till his late 30s at an all pro level. At corner. Exactly. The other corner, this was so hard, but I went with, I almost did Lester Hayes. I know Charles Woodson gets a shout. I went with Nnamdi Asomugha, who his peak, like we talked about, it is up there with anybody else. He has no interceptions basically because nobody would throw the ball against him. He was the absolute definition of shut down corner, and especially the era that he played in, just a terrible era for the team, where they were constantly winning 3, 4, 5 games. And he was head and shoulders, the best player there. Miscast in other places, but one of the best, I don't even hesitate to say, one of the best man-to-man corners in NFL history.
He was so good for the Raiders, and like you said, miscast other places. He just fell off a cliff. I guess, I don't know what it was, the system or what it was, but he left the Raiders and it was over for him. Absolutely over for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my safeties, so I cheated a little bit here, but I put George Atkinson at safety, member of the Soul Patrol, one of the hardest hitting players in league history, one of the franchise leaders in interceptions to this day. And then I slotted Charles Woodson in at free safety.
Cheating. Because that's not cheating. He played corner,
right? It's not.
Wait till you see what I did.
Yeah, but there's some guys I had to leave off. I mean, Jack Tatum, I had to leave him off, unfortunately. And then Lester Hayes was another guy. So again, you could have gone with 8 different guys. So,
so my corners, Willie Brown, of course. I did put Lester Hayes in that second corner. So, but I mean, so that's not Asomugha, not Mike Haynes, who was amazing there for the Raiders. Charles Woodson, you could argue, is an honorable mention corner. He played corner. He left the Raiders, came back, played safety for the Raiders. So I have Woodson as one of my safeties, and I have Jack Tatum as the other safety. So I have Atkinson as an honorable mention. So my safeties are Woodson and Tatum, and then my corners are Willie Brown and Lester Hayes. And you've got 3 or 4 amazing players that could be an all-time secondary by themselves, left off because they're that good.
Yeah. I probably should have went with Jack Tatum as the other safety. I was trying to stay a little bit true to the position.
Jack Tatum.
All right, and then head coach John Madden, I think, is the slam dunk. 10 years, no losing season. I think his worst season was 9-7. Super Bowl champ. Just an incredible legacy. All that good stuff. And coached there from 69 to 78. Unfortunately, couldn't coach much longer than that. He had his fear of flying and all those things. So, incredible legacy for this team.